The sun was climbing slowly into the sky, casting a warm, golden light over the crowded marketplace. Stalls lined the narrow streets, each overflowing with colorful fruits, fresh vegetables, small trinkets, and everyday necessities. The air smelled of fresh bread, spices, and the faint scent of smoke from street vendors' grills. People were walking in every direction, shouting their prices, bargaining loudly, and laughing with each other. It was the kind of busy morning where everyone seemed to be in a hurry, yet the marketplace had its own rhythm, a rhythm of life that never stopped. In the middle of this chaos, a small figure pushed a broken cart. The cart was old and patched in several places, its wooden wheels uneven and squeaking with every movement. On the cart were a few bags, some old blankets, and a small bundle wrapped in a faded cloth. The girl pushing it was no more than 7 or 8 years old, small and thin, with big brown eyes that seemed too old for her face. Her hair was tied back in a loose braid that had strands falling over her cheeks. She wore a simple dress, patched at the edges, and worn shoes that barely covered her small feet. Behind her, a woman struggled to keep up. It was her mother, a woman in her early 30s with tired eyes and hands rough from work. She was carrying a small bag herself and helping to balance the cart whenever it wobbled. Her face was marked by worry, yet there was a quiet strength in her movements. Every step seemed heavy, as if the weight of their lives was pressing down on her, but she kept going. The mother knew that they had to get through this day, one step at a time, even if it was exhausting. The girl, whose name was Amina, tried to push the cart as gently as she could. She was careful not to let anything fall, although the uneven pavement made it almost impossible. Each time the cart tilted to one side, she would hold it steady with her small hands, breathing in deeply to keep calm. The market was crowded, and people would brush past her without noticing, their attention focused on their own errands. Some shouted to each other, some laughed loudly, some were busy counting money, and some just hurried past, their faces serious and distant. Amina felt invisible, as if she and her mother were just another part of the crowd. She didn't mind it. She had grown used to being invisible in the busy streets. But today, she felt a little tired. Her arms ached from pushing the cart, and the morning sun was already making her cheeks warm. Still, she did not complain. She had learned early that complaining did not help. She looked at her mother, who was walking slowly behind her, balancing the cart whenever it wobbled too much. Her mother smiled faintly at her daughter, a smile that said, "We can do this, one step at a time." As they moved through the market, people occasionally glanced at the cart. Some looked with pity, others with curiosity, and a few with annoyance, because the cart blocked the narrow street. Amina noticed the looks but ignored them. She was used to it. People often looked at them, but rarely spoke. Most of the time, the market moved too fast for anyone to stop and care. But today, something felt different. A man was walking slowly down the same path. He was dressed neatly in simple clothes, a shirt and trousers, carrying a small bag over his shoulder. He was not in a hurry, and his eyes wandered over the market with interest, taking in the colors, the smells, and the people. When he saw the small girl struggling with the broken cart, he paused. At first, he only observed quietly, not wanting to interfere. The cart was old, and the girl was small. It seemed like a difficult task for her, and yet she kept going, carefully moving the cart through the crowded street. The man noticed how she looked up at the people around her, her eyes scanning to make sure the cart did not bump into anyone. He saw the determination in her small hands and the gentle way she balanced the load. Her little arms moved with effort, yet she did not give up. The man felt a strange feeling in his chest. He had seen many people struggling before, but there was something different about this girl. Something about her quiet strength and her calmness in the face of difficulty touched him. He took a few steps closer, still keeping a small distance, unsure if he should speak. The mother was behind the girl, looking worried but also proud of her daughter. The man noticed the woman's tired eyes and the careful way she walked, always ready to support her child. He realized that both of them had been through a lot. The cart, their few belongings, and the way they moved through the crowded market all told a story of struggle, endurance, and survival. Suddenly, the cart hit a bump and tilted sharply to one side. Amina's heart skipped a beat, and she grabbed the edge of the cart with both hands. The mother rushed forward to steady it, her own bag swinging at her side. People around them moved quickly to avoid the wobbling cart, some giving impatient glances. The man immediately stepped closer, ready to help if needed. But before he could reach them, Amina managed to balance the cart with careful movements, her small body leaning to keep it steady. She let out a quiet sigh of relief and looked up at her mother. Her mother smiled faintly, her eyes showing both relief and pride. She nodded at her daughter, and Amina felt a warm wave of encouragement. She straightened up and continued pushing the cart, determined to get through the market. The man watched silently, impressed by the girl's courage and composure. He realized that this little girl had more strength than most adults he had met. Her focus, her care, and her determination were remarkable. As they moved further, Amina noticed a few children playing near a fruit stall. They were laughing, running around, and chasing each other. She paused for a moment, watching them. Her own life was so different. She didn't have time to play, to laugh freely, or to run without worry. Her life was about pushing the cart, helping her mother, and making sure they survived each day. She felt a small pang of longing, but quickly pushed it aside. She had a job to do. The man continued to follow quietly at a distance. He noticed the small stuffed toy that Amina held tightly in one hand, a toy that seemed to be her only comfort. He wondered about her life, about the days she had spent struggling and the nights she had gone to sleep hungry. He wondered what dreams she had and what she hoped for. His heart ached a little, and he felt a strong desire to do something, anything, to help. Amina stopped for a moment to catch her breath. The cart was heavy, and her little legs ached from walking. She looked around, taking in the busy marketplace, the people, the stalls, and the sounds. Everything seemed so big, so fast, and so overwhelming. Yet she did not panic. She took a deep breath, tightened her grip on the cart, and continued moving forward. Her mother walked beside her, giving quiet encouragement. The man finally decided to approach. He took careful steps, not wanting to scare the girl or her mother. As he got closer, he smiled gently and said, "Hello, do you need some help?" Amina looked up at him, her big brown eyes studying his face. She felt a little wary at first, but something in his calm tone made her relax. She shook her head gently and replied softly, "No, thank you. We can manage." The mother also looked at the man, her eyes cautious but polite. She nodded slightly and said, "We appreciate it, but we are fine. Thank you." The man understood and stepped back slightly. He didn't want to push, but he couldn't take his eyes off them. There was something about their quiet determination that stayed with him. Amina took another deep breath and pushed the cart forward. The man walked alongside them, keeping a respectful distance, watching as they navigated through the crowded market. Each wobble of the cart, each careful step, each glance between mother and daughter told a story that no words could capture. It was a story of struggle, love, endurance, and quiet courage. The marketplace continued to buzz around them, people haggling, laughing, shouting, and moving quickly. But for a small moment, in that crowded space, there was a quiet story unfolding that only a few people noticed. A story of a little girl, her mother, and the courage it takes to face each day with hope, even when life seems too heavy to carry. As they moved further down the street, Amina felt a strange sense of comfort, knowing that someone had noticed them. She didn't know the man, and he didn't know them, but his gentle presence made her feel a little lighter. Her mother also felt it, though she did not speak. Sometimes, kindness does not need words, it can be felt in the quiet moments, in the understanding glance of a stranger who sees you as more than just your struggles. The cart continued to creak and wobble, but Amina pushed on, steady and determined. The market seemed endless, yet she kept going, step by step, guided by her small but strong hands, her mother's quiet support, and the faint, comforting presence of the man who walked silently alongside the broken cart. Finally gave out completely just as Amina and her mother reached a narrow lane at the edge of the market. One of the wheels cracked with a loud snap, and the cart tilted sharply to one side. Amina's hands clutched the handle tightly, and her small body wobbled with the sudden imbalance. The few belongings in the cart shifted dangerously, and she instinctively tried to catch them before they fell onto the hard, dusty ground. Her mother hurried forward, putting her hand under the cart to steady it, her face showing a mix of concern and frustration. "Oh no, not again," her mother murmured, her voice low but tinged with exhaustion. She was used to these struggles. Every day seemed to bring a new obstacle, whether it was finding food, earning money, or simply keeping their small cart functional. But today, this broken wheel felt heavier than usual. It was as if life itself was testing their patience and strength. Amina could see the worry lines deepening on her mother's forehead, and for a moment, she felt a little panic rise inside her. But Amina was not the kind of child who gave up easily. She had learned from a very young age that fear and frustration did not help solve problems. She let out a small, determined sigh and looked at the broken wheel, trying to figure out how to make it work at least enough to keep moving. The wheel was crooked, the axle bent, and one side of the cart was scraping against the stones of the lane. The noise it made was loud and irritating, drawing curious glances from people nearby. The stranger, who had been walking alongside them quietly, noticed the commotion and immediately stepped closer. He could see the difficulty in Amina's small movements and the strain in her mother's body as she tried to balance the cart. His first instinct was to help physically, to lift the cart or push it to safety. But before he could say anything, something unexpected happened. Amina looked up at him, her eyes wide and serious, and said softly, "We don't need food today, just a hug." The words took him completely by surprise. He had expected perhaps a request for help with the cart or even a thank you for noticing them, but a hug. He paused, unsure how to respond. A hug was simple, yet powerful, a request that carried more meaning than any words he could have offered. He looked at the girl, her small frame trembling slightly from the effort of holding the cart upright, and something inside him shifted. He knelt down slowly, lowering himself to her level, and opened his arms. The girl stepped forward cautiously, still holding the edge of the cart with one hand, and wrapped her small arms around him. The embrace was brief but strong, as if she was trying to transfer all her worry, her loneliness, and her strength into that one hug. The man felt a strange warmth spread through him, a sense of connection that he hadn't felt in a long time. Her mother watched silently, tears welling up in her eyes. She was not surprised that her daughter asked for a hug. Amina had always been sensitive to the world around her, understanding more than she let on. But seeing a stranger respond with such immediate kindness touched her deeply. It reminded her that there were still good people in the world, people who cared even without knowing your story. For a few moments, the marketplace seemed to fade away. The shouts of the vendors, the laughter of children, the clatter of carts, all of it became background noise. In that small, quiet moment, all that mattered was the hug. It was more than a gesture of comfort. It was recognition. It was empathy. It was human connection. When Amina finally stepped back, her eyes glistened with unshed tears. She smiled faintly, a small, genuine smile that lit up her tired face. The man smiled back, feeling a mixture of happiness and sadness. Happiness because he had been able to offer comfort, sadness because he knew that life had been so hard for these two, that a simple hug could mean more than many other things they lacked. The mother finally spoke, her voice shaky but gentle. "Thank you," she said, looking at the man with gratitude that went beyond words. "You don't know what this means to us." The man shook his head slightly, touched by her sincerity. "I think I do," he said quietly. "Sometimes, we all just need someone to see us, to acknowledge that we are here, that we matter." Amina looked down at the broken cart, then back at the man. "Can you help us with it?" she asked cautiously. Her voice was small, but it carried determination. The man nodded without hesitation. "Of course," he said. He moved closer to the cart and examined the damage. The wheel was bent badly, but with some effort, they could at least make it move enough to get to a safer spot. Together, the three of them worked quietly, moving pieces, lifting the cart slightly, and trying to stabilize it. Amina and her mother followed his instructions carefully. She handed him small sticks and pieces of cloth to wedge the wheel, while her mother held the cart steady. The man realized that even with his help, the work was exhausting for them. Their strength was tested not only by the weight of the cart but also by the long days of struggle they had endured before this moment. As they managed to get the cart rolling again, Amina's mother let out a small sigh of relief. "Thank you," she said again, more softly this time. "We have been struggling for so long, sometimes it feels like no one notices us." The man nodded, understanding her words more deeply than she could know. "I notice," he said simply. "And I want to help in whatever way I can." Amina looked at him, her small hands still gripping the cart handle. "You don't have to help with food," she said, almost repeating her earlier thought. "Just, be kind. That's enough." The man smiled, feeling both humbled and inspired. Here was a child who had seen hardship, who had lived with scarcity, yet she valued kindness above everything else. Her simple words were a reminder of what truly mattered in life. They continued moving the cart, the man walking beside them, guiding it carefully over the rough stones. The marketplace was still bustling, but now, Amina and her mother felt less alone. There was someone who had noticed them, someone who had taken a moment to care. And sometimes, that small act of attention and empathy can feel heavier than carrying a cart full of burdens. It can feel like hope. As they walked, the man asked small questions, trying to make conversation without intruding. "Where are you headed?" he asked gently. Amina's mother replied softly, "Just through the market, to sell what little we have." She didn't say much more, but the words were enough. They revealed the constant struggle of survival, the effort to make each day better than the last. Amina walked beside her mother, glancing occasionally at the man. She felt safe with him there, even though they had just met. His presence was comforting, steady, and non-judgmental. She realized that sometimes strangers could become allies, even if only for a moment. The cart was still heavy, the wheel still unstable, but with this unexpected support, the journey felt less daunting. A few children ran past them, laughing and playing, their joy a stark contrast to the careful steps of Amina and her mother. Amina glanced at them briefly, feeling a mix of longing and acceptance. She didn't have the luxury of playing today, but she had something just as valuable, the small human connection she had just experienced. A hug, a smile, and someone's attention were worth more than anything the bustling market could offer. The man noticed her glance and said softly, "It's okay, your turn to play will come. But for now, you are doing something very important." Amina looked at him, puzzled for a moment, and then nodded. She understood, in her small way, that life sometimes demanded patience and resilience. But the knowledge that someone cared, that someone saw them, gave her energy to continue. Finally, they reached a slightly wider path where the cart could be moved more easily. The man helped them stabilize it, and for a moment, they all paused to catch their breath. The sun was higher now, casting longer shadows, but the warmth of the moment lingered in their hearts. Amina hugged her mother briefly, then looked at the man with gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. For noticing us. The man smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. He had come to the market for his own errands, unaware that a small broken cart and a little girl's request would leave such an impact on him. He realized that kindness was not measured in grand gestures or expensive gifts. Sometimes, the simplest acts, a hug, a helping hand, or even a moment of attention, could make the biggest difference in someone's life. The mother looked at the man one last time and said, "You've given us more than you know. Just your time, your care, it's worth more than food today." The man nodded, understanding fully. "I'm glad I could help," he said. "And I hope that things will get easier for you soon." She smiled faintly, tears threatening to spill, but she held them back. Sometimes, gratitude didn't need words, it could be felt in a quiet smile or a glance filled with. After they managed to get the cart moving more smoothly, Amina and her mother felt a small wave of relief wash over them. The man walked beside them, guiding the cart along the uneven stones, making sure it didn't tip over again. Though they were still far from their destination, the journey now felt lighter with someone helping, even if only for a little while. Amina glanced up at him, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "Why are you helping us?" she asked softly. There was no suspicion in her tone, just simple wonder. Most people in the market passed by without a second glance. The man paused, thinking carefully about how to answer a question so pure and honest. "I think everyone deserves help sometimes," he said finally. "Even a small hand or a small smile can make life better for someone else. And today, I think you both deserve a little help." His voice was calm, gentle, and sincere. Amina nodded thoughtfully, as if she had understood something much deeper than the words themselves. Her mother, meanwhile, continued to steady the cart, her muscles aching from the effort. She was used to hard work, to carrying more than her body could bear, but this journey reminded her of how heavy life could feel when you had so little support. Yet, the presence of this stranger, his willingness to stop and lend a hand, made her heart feel lighter. She hadn't realized how long it had been since someone had offered help without asking for something in return. The marketplace around them was alive with energy. Vendors shouted to attract buyers, children ran past chasing one another, and the smells of fresh bread, spices, and fruits filled the air. Amina's mother tried to focus on getting their cart closer to the small stand where they sold their goods, but her eyes kept drifting to the people around them. Many were busy with their own lives, and some glanced at them with curiosity, noticing the broken cart and the small girl walking beside it. Amina noticed it too, but she had learned to be resilient. She held her head high and kept moving, her determination shining through despite the difficulty. The man walking beside them noticed the tension in their movements and decided to make the journey a little easier. "Do you want me to carry some of it?" he asked. He gestured toward the cart, which still held their modest belongings. Amina and her mother exchanged a brief glance. They were proud people, used to carrying their own burdens, but they knew this was not a moment to refuse help. "Yes, thank you," her mother said quietly. She handed him a bundle wrapped in cloth, feeling the weight lift off her shoulders immediately. Amina gave him a small smile, appreciating the gesture. For the first time that day, it felt like they were not alone, like someone was truly on their side. As they continued, the man asked gently, "What do you sell here?" Her mother hesitated briefly, then replied softly, "We sell small handmade goods, sometimes cloth, sometimes small toys, whatever people can afford." Her voice was steady but carried the faintest hint of sadness. Amina listened quietly, proud of her mother's resilience. Even when life was hard, she had learned to be strong and make the most of every opportunity. The man nodded thoughtfully. "It must take a lot of skill and patience," he said, "to make things that people love and need." Her mother smiled faintly, though it was tinged with exhaustion. "It does," she admitted. "But it's all we have, and we try our best every day." The man felt a deep respect for her. To survive, to work, to care for a child while offering something meaningful to others, it was a strength he admired. Amina's small hand reached for a piece of cloth she had been holding in the cart. She ran her fingers over it, feeling its soft texture. "I like helping people," she said softly, almost to herself. "Even if it's just a little thing, like giving a smile or helping someone pick something up." The man looked at her, surprised by her insight. For a child, her words were profound. He realized that the spirit of kindness could be learned early, and it was already blooming in her. They finally reached the small clearing near the stand where her mother sold their goods. It was not a large space, but it was safe and visible enough to attract some buyers. Her mother quickly began setting up the items on a small table, arranging them neatly despite her exhaustion. Amina helped, placing the smaller items in careful rows. The man stepped back, watching them work together. He realized that even in the smallest acts, there was beauty: the care they put into their work, the quiet love between mother and daughter, and the courage to continue despite the challenges they faced. A small crowd began to form naturally. People walking through the market were drawn to the display. Some admired the handmade items, others asked gentle questions, and a few offered small compliments. The presence of the man helped too. He quietly encouraged her mother to smile, to greet people warmly, and to feel proud of what she had made. For a moment, Amina and her mother felt a sense of normalcy, a small relief from the struggles that had weighed them down all day. Amina noticed a little boy staring at the cart and the man helping them. She waved at him, and he waved back shyly. It was a small interaction, but it brought a faint smile to her face. She realized that even tiny gestures could build connections, even in a bustling, busy market. And she was beginning to understand that help could come from unexpected places, like the kind stranger who had joined them earlier. The day went on slowly, but not without small victories. A few customers bought some of their items, providing them with much needed money for the week. Her mother felt a small sense of accomplishment, and Amina was proud to have been part of the effort. The man noticed the change in their demeanor: the way their shoulders seemed a little less tense, the faint light returning to their eyes. He felt a quiet satisfaction in seeing how a little help could ripple through their day, creating moments of hope and happiness. As the sun began to lower in the sky, the market started to wind down. People packed up their stalls, children were called home, and the air grew quieter. Amina and her mother began preparing to pack up their remaining items, ready to head back to their small home. The man offered to help them carry the heavier bundles again, and they accepted gratefully. Together, they made their way through the market, the cart now more stable and easier to manage than before. Amina walked close to him, her small hand brushing against his sleeve. She felt safe and calm with him nearby. "Do you have a home?" she asked softly, curious about the man who had helped them so selflessly. The question caught him off guard for a moment. "Yes," he replied after a pause, smiling faintly. "I do. And I have people who care about me too." Amina nodded thoughtfully. She understood, in her childlike way, that having a home was not just about walls and a roof, it was about love and care, something she and her mother were learning to find in moments like this. They reached the edge of the market, where the streets became quieter and less crowded. Her mother paused, adjusting the cart and catching her breath. She looked at the man and said quietly, "You've done more for us today than we could have imagined." "Thank you, truly." He shook his head gently. "No need to thank me. Sometimes, the right thing is just to help. That's all." Her mother smiled, a mixture of gratitude and relief washing over her. Amina tugged lightly at his hand, her eyes wide and innocent. "Will you come visit us again?" she asked. Her voice carried hope, and he could see the sincerity in her gaze. He smiled, kneeling down to meet her eye level. "I can't promise," he said gently, "but I will always remember you and your mother. And I hope that one day, you will meet someone who can help you too, just as I did today. She nodded slowly, understanding the sentiment even if she didn't fully grasp the words. As the man prepared to leave, Amina and her mother waved at him. For a brief moment, the harshness of the world seemed to fade, replaced by a small, shining connection of kindness and humanity. The market was quiet now, the colors dimming with the setting sun, but the warmth of the day lingered in their hearts. Walking back home with their cart, the mother and daughter felt lighter, not just physically but emotionally. They had faced struggles and challenges, yet in a single day, they had also experienced kindness, understanding, and care from a stranger who had taken a moment to notice them. Amina held her mother's hand tightly, feeling a sense of security and comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. As they disappeared down the winding streets of their neighborhood, the man watched them go, a quiet smile on his face. He knew he had made a difference, even if small, and he felt a sense of fulfillment. It was a reminder that sometimes, the smallest actions like helping with a broken cart or offering a hug could have a profound impact on someone's life. The next morning, Amina woke up to the soft sound of birds singing outside her small window. The sunlight streamed gently through the thin curtains, painting her room in warm golden tones. She rubbed her eyes, still carrying the memories of the previous day in her mind. The kindness of the stranger lingered, like a soft light in the back of her heart, making her feel safer and braver than she had in a long time. Her mother was already awake, quietly preparing a small breakfast of bread and tea. Even in the early morning, her mother's hands moved with careful precision, as if she had been awake for hours, though Amina knew she had only just woken. The small kitchen smelled faintly of fresh bread, a smell that was comforting and grounding. Amina sat quietly at the small wooden table, sipping her tea, thinking about how yesterday had gone. "Did you see the man again?" her mother asked gently, as if reading her daughter's thoughts. Amina shook her head. "No, he went away after helping us," she said. Her mother nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Sometimes, help comes once, and we have to carry its memory with us," she said softly. Amina didn't fully understand, but she knew her mother was right. The memory of someone being kind without expecting anything in return was something to hold onto, something that could give strength even in difficult times. After breakfast, they began preparing for the day. Her mother packed the remaining items they had left from the previous day's market. They had earned some money, enough to buy a few more supplies, but it was never enough to feel completely secure. Still, Amina noticed a small change in her mother's demeanor. She seemed lighter, a little more hopeful, as if yesterday's kindness had reminded her that life could still hold small joys. As they stepped outside, the streets were already buzzing with activity. People were walking quickly to their jobs, merchants were setting up their stalls, and children ran about, laughing and chasing one another. Amina held her mother's hand tightly, helping to steady the small cart they were taking to the market. Even though they had faced challenges yesterday, the rhythm of the day felt comforting. Life was moving forward, and they were moving with it, carrying both their burdens and their hopes. On the way to the market, Amina's mother noticed a few neighbors looking at them with curiosity. Some waved, others offered quick smiles. It was a small reminder that in their busy world, people still noticed one another. Amina felt a warmth spread in her chest. The market could be harsh and competitive, but it was also full of small connections, moments of recognition that made life feel a little less lonely. When they reached the market, they noticed that some new vendors had set up their stalls. Bright fabrics, fresh fruits, and colorful toys lined the paths. The market was lively, full of energy and noise, but it also had a rhythm that was comforting. Amina and her mother began setting up their items again, arranging them carefully, as if each small item deserved attention and care. As they worked, Amina noticed a small boy tugging at his mother's sleeve, staring curiously at their stall. He pointed to a small toy and whispered something. Amina smiled at him and offered the toy quietly. The boy's face lit up, and his mother nodded in thanks. It was a small act, almost invisible in the hustle of the market, but Amina felt a sense of satisfaction. She realized that even the smallest kindness could create joy in another person's life, and that realization made her feel proud. Throughout the morning, more people stopped to look at their items. Some bought small pieces of cloth, others chose tiny handmade toys. Amina's mother carefully counted each coin, placing them in a small pouch. Though it was not much, each coin represented a step forward, a small victory that allowed them to continue living day by day. Amina helped by handing items to customers and smiling warmly, learning the quiet art of hospitality. By midday, the sun had risen high, and the market grew hotter and noisier. Sweat trickled down Amina's mother's back as she adjusted the items on the table. She paused for a moment, looking around at the people around her, and noticed the stranger from yesterday walking through the market. Amina spotted him first and tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Look! It's the man from yesterday," she whispered excitedly. The stranger noticed them too and smiled. He walked over, his steps calm and deliberate, like someone who moved through the world carefully, noticing small details that others often missed. "Good morning," he said gently. "How are you both today?" Her mother smiled faintly, a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "We are managing," she said softly. "Thank you for checking on us." The man looked around the market, noticing the hustle and bustle. "It's not easy, running a stall in a busy market," he said. "But you both handle it with patience and care. That is something rare." Amina's mother felt a small wave of pride. Though she had faced hardships, being recognized for her efforts by someone she didn't even know made her feel seen and appreciated. They talked for a while, sharing small stories of the market, of customers who had been kind, and of challenges they faced daily. The man listened patiently, nodding and offering gentle encouragement. Amina noticed how he seemed to understand their struggles, not judging or offering advice they didn't ask for, but simply acknowledging their experiences. It was a rare kind of empathy, and Amina felt a deep respect for him. At one point, the man leaned closer and asked, "Would you like some help today? Perhaps I can carry some of the heavier items or talk to some of the customers with you." Her mother hesitated, pride warring with the need for assistance. Finally, she nodded. "If you don't mind," she said. "It would make the day much easier." Amina felt a rush of relief and gratitude. With his help, the heavy burdens of the day would not feel so overwhelming. The man began helping immediately, lifting heavier bundles and arranging items neatly on the stall. Customers seemed drawn to his calm demeanor, and some even smiled at him as they passed by. Amina noticed how his presence seemed to create a small ripple of positivity, making the market feel slightly more welcoming, even in its chaos. As the day continued, Amina and her mother realized how much easier the work became with his help. They could focus on interacting with customers, arranging their items, and managing the small coins they earned. Even though it was still hard work, the burden felt lighter. Amina noticed a sense of joy building within her, a small spark that made her want to keep going, to continue helping her mother and learning from the kindness around her. During a brief break, Amina sat down and watched the people around her. Children played nearby, vendors chatted, and the sunlight danced across the market stalls. She realized that life was full of small stories, little moments that often went unnoticed but carried meaning for those who experienced them. She felt grateful for the stranger who had reminded her of the value of helping others and the beauty of small acts of kindness. By late afternoon, the market began to quiet down. Vendors packed up their stalls, customers disappeared down side streets, and the noise gradually faded. Amina and her mother counted their earnings for the day. Though not a fortune, it was enough to buy supplies, pay a small bill, and still have a little left for unexpected needs. They felt a small sense of accomplishment, strengthened by the knowledge that they had worked hard and done their best. The stranger helped them pack the remaining items into the cart, his presence calm and reassuring. Amina held his hand briefly, grateful for his help and his kindness. "Thank you for today," she said softly. "You've helped us more than you know." He smiled warmly. "Remember, the help you receive is not the end. One day, you may give help to someone else, and that is how kindness continues." Amina nodded, feeling a small understanding bloom inside her. Walking back home, the street seemed quieter, but the warmth of the day lingered. Amina noticed small details she hadn't seen before: the way sunlight reflected off windows, the laughter of children playing in a courtyard, the smell of fresh bread from a nearby bakery. She realized that even ordinary things could feel extraordinary when seen through a lens of hope and gratitude. As they reached their small home, her mother sighed with relief. "Today was better," she said softly. "Even with all the work, it felt lighter." Amina smiled, her heart full. She had learned so much from the day: the value of small acts of kindness, the importance of perseverance, and the quiet strength that came from facing challenges with courage. The stranger paused at the gate of their home. "I must go now," he said. "But I hope that the memories of today stay with you, and that you continue to find small lights in your path." Amina hugged him quickly, her small arms barely wrapping around his waist. "I will remember," she said, her voice earnest and sincere. As he walked away, Amina watched him disappear down the street. She felt a mixture of sadness and gratitude, knowing that even brief encounters could leave lasting impressions. She turned to her mother, who smiled faintly, and together they stepped inside their home, carrying with them the lessons of the day, the warmth of kindness, and that evening, the home felt quieter than usual. The sunlight had faded, leaving a soft glow of orange and pink in the sky outside the small window. Amina sat on the edge of the worn sofa, looking around at the little home that she shared with her mother. Everything in the house was simple, and some things were worn from years of use, but it was theirs, and it carried the memories of the hard work, love, and care that had gone into keeping it together. Her mother was busy in the small kitchen, washing the dishes from the day's breakfast and lunch. The sound of water running into the sink, the clinking of plates, and the faint scent of soap created a sense of normalcy. Even after the excitement of the market and the unexpected kindness of the stranger, life had a way of bringing them back to their daily routines. But tonight, there was a lightness in the air, something that hadn't been there before: a quiet sense of hope. Amina thought about the stranger's words, that kindness never ended, that it traveled from one person to another. She realized how true it was. Yesterday, she had been worried, scared, and uncertain about how she would manage. But a simple act of helping, a few kind words, had made a huge difference. She felt a warmth inside her chest and wondered how she could carry that forward, how she could share the same light with others. Her mother came over with a small tray of warm tea and a slice of bread each. "Sit, my dear," she said, smiling gently. Amina took the tea, the warmth of the cup comforting her chilled hands. They sipped in silence for a moment, both lost in thought, both reflecting on the day's events. The market had been busy, tiring, but something had changed. There was a sense of connection, not just between themselves, but with others. Small gestures, small conversations, had made the world feel a little brighter. After finishing their tea, Amina and her mother began tidying the small living room. They swept the floor, put away small items, and adjusted the few decorations they had. Each task felt lighter than before. The presence of hope made even small chores easier, and the knowledge that someone had cared for them without expecting anything in return gave them strength. As the evening grew darker, Amina decided to sit by the window and watch the world outside. The streets were calmer now. Children had gone home, vendors had packed their stalls, and a soft wind rustled the leaves of the nearby trees. She could see a few lights flickering in distant houses, and she imagined families gathering together, sharing meals, telling stories, and finding joy in simple moments. Amina felt a deep longing to belong, to be part of that larger world, even as she continued to face challenges in her own small life. Suddenly, there was a soft knock at the door. Amina's mother looked up, surprised. Who could that be at this hour, she wondered aloud. Amina went to the door carefully and opened it. Standing there was the stranger from the market, holding a small bundle in his hands. He smiled gently. "Good evening," he said. "I thought I might bring something for you both." "Nothing much, just a little to help you." Her mother's eyes widened slightly. "You didn't have to," she said softly, touched by the gesture. Amina stepped forward to help, and the stranger handed over the bundle. Inside, there were a few simple groceries, some fresh fruits, and a small loaf of bread. It was not much, but in that moment, it felt like a treasure. Amina realized that kindness did not have to be grand to make a difference. Even small acts could carry enormous meaning. They invited the stranger inside. He shook his head gently. "I shouldn't stay long," he said. "I just wanted to make sure you were okay." But he stayed for a few minutes, talking quietly with Amina and her mother. They shared stories of their day, of small victories and challenges, and for the first time in a long while, Amina felt truly connected to someone outside her family. She realized that connections, even brief ones, could leave lasting impressions and change the way one saw the world. After he left, the room felt a little emptier, but Amina carried a sense of warmth inside her. She helped her mother prepare a simple dinner. They talked quietly while eating, sharing their thoughts about the day, about the people they had met, and about the small but important lessons they had learned. Amina realized that life, even in its struggles, was full of opportunities to learn, to grow, and to discover the good that existed in others. After dinner, Amina helped her mother wash the dishes and then sat down at the small desk in the corner of their living room. She opened a notebook she had been keeping, one where she wrote about her thoughts, her dreams, and the things she noticed every day. Tonight, she wrote about the stranger, about his kindness, and about how a simple act could change the course of a day, even a life. Writing it down made her feel calm and thoughtful, as if putting her feelings into words gave them strength and permanence. Her mother came over to peek at the notebook. "You are growing so wise, Amina," she said softly. "You notice the good, you remember it, and you think about it. That is a precious gift." Amina smiled, feeling a small pride. She realized that noticing goodness in others, holding onto it, and learning from it was a way of carrying hope forward, a way to make life brighter not just for herself, but for those around her. As the night deepened, Amina prepared for bed. She carefully folded her clothes, set the small lamp on the bedside table, and climbed under the thin blanket. The room was quiet now, except for the soft sounds of the city outside and the occasional flutter of wings from a bird returning to its nest. She lay there thinking about the day, the market, the kindness they had received, and the small joys she had discovered. She thought about the little boy in the market whose face had lit up when she gave him the toy. She thought about the customers who had smiled at her mother and her, and she thought about the stranger, who had shown that even in a world that could be harsh, there were people willing to help without asking for anything in return. Amina felt a deep sense of gratitude, a feeling that filled her heart with warmth and peace. Her mother came to tuck her in. "Sleep well, my dear," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from Amina's face. "Tomorrow is another day, full of possibilities. Remember, we face it together, and together, we can find small joys and keep going." Amina nodded, feeling a sense of comfort and safety. She realized that her mother's words were true not just for tomorrow, but for every day. Life could be challenging, but with love, courage, and kindness, they could face anything. As Amina closed her eyes, she made a small promise to herself. She would remember the lessons of this week. She would carry kindness in her heart, not just for herself, but to give to others whenever she could. She would be brave, patient, and hopeful, knowing that even small actions could create change. And she would never forget that even in difficult times, there were moments of beauty, light, and connection that could make life meaningful. The room grew darker, but Amina's heart felt bright. She drifted into sleep, her dreams filled with soft sunlight, laughter, and the gentle presence of people who cared. In her dreams, she saw herself walking through the market, helping others, smiling at children, and sharing small acts of kindness that rippled outward, touching lives she might never even know. She felt joy in her chest, a deep, steady joy that came from understanding the power of compassion and the quiet strength of hope. Morning came slowly, with the soft glow of sunlight painting the room in warm colors. Amina woke, feeling rested and calm. She stretched, taking a deep breath of the morning air, and looked around at the small home that had grown richer in meaning over the past few days. She noticed the small changes, the sense of lightness in the air, the faint smell of fresh bread her mother had baked, and the quiet energy that filled the house. Life was continuing, full of challenges, but also full of hope. She went to the kitchen, where her mother was preparing breakfast. Together, they worked side by side, talking quietly about the day ahead, about small plans, and about the lessons they had learned. Amina felt stronger, braver, and more confident in her ability to face whatever came next. The kindness they had received, the small joys they had discovered, and the understanding they had gained about the power of small acts of compassion had changed them. It had opened a door in their hearts that could never be closed. And so, the days continued, each one bringing new challenges, new people, and new opportunities for kindness. Amina and her mother faced each day with courage, patience, and hope, carrying the memory of the stranger's kindness and the lessons of the market in their hearts. They learned that life, even in its simplest forms, could be rich with meaning, joy, and connection. They understood that small acts of love, care, and courage could create ripples that reached far beyond what they could see.